I was your classic trust fund kid, and I fell for Ethan, the most popular guy on campus, the second I saw him. Using my family's money and influence, I basically forced him to be my boyfriend. After 4 years tangled together, he still didn't like me. Then, right before graduation, I heard him say, "Who would ever be into a guy? It's disgusting." So I turned around, left the country, and never looked back. But when we met again years later, he was the one who blocked my path, his eyes red. He pleaded with me so carefully, you don't want me anymore? I saw Ethan again at a dinner party celebrating my return to the country. He was a hotshot in the business world now, a far cry from the awkward, broke kid he used to be. He was even my biggest potential investor. The project manager had no idea we knew each other and was trying his best to warm up the room, desperate to make the deal happen. At one point, he brought up my alma mater. "I hear Mr. Brooke and Mr. Johnston went to the same university. Did you two know each other back then?" I answered calmly, "We didn't." After I said it, I saw Ethan's head lift almost imperceptibly. But I didn't even glance his way. From the moment I saw Ethan, I knew this partnership probably wouldn't happen. After all, he used to hate me so much. Ethan shifted in his seat, his gaze fixed on me. He stayed silent for a long time. I was already braced for rejection. But in the next second, a cool voice cut through the air. "I agree." He said yes. I had to double-check if I'd heard him right. Once it was confirmed, the project manager excitedly poured me several glasses of wine. "Come on, everyone. A toast to our successful collaboration." I stood up to make the toast. The second our glasses touched, a hand grabbed my wrist. It was an almost unconscious reflex from Ethan. My tolerance for alcohol was terrible, and he'd long since gotten into the habit of taking drinks for me. He looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. Slowly, as everyone stared, he let go. He knew he didn't have the right to do that anymore. In the end, I drank every glass of wine on the table. While waiting for a car by the curb, I noticed Ethan was there, too. Maybe it was the alcohol going to my head, but I saw him running toward me. "Martin." Just as I opened the car door, Ethan blocked my way. Leo rolled down the window and called out affectionately, "Babe, you getting in?" In the next instant, Ethan's eyes turned red, and his grip on my arm tightened. He pleaded with me so carefully, you don't want me anymore? Back in college, I was into Ethan from the moment I saw him. He was wearing a simple white shirt, tall and lean, with a clean, gentle vibe that made him stand out from the noisy crowd around him. When he bent his head to sign his name, the line of his long, pale neck was exposed. He looked like a proud, aloof swan. I wanted him, so I went for it without a second thought. I had people ask around about his interests and his schedule, hoping for a chance to get close. Unfortunately, Ethan was a total ice king. He didn't have many friends and spent all his time either in class or buried in the library. Luckily for me, I'm stubborn. I don't give up easily. I'd always been a slacker, but to get Ethan's attention, I started hauling my textbooks to the library every single day. I always sat near him and would pass him notes pretending to ask about a problem. Ethan was a good guy. Even when my questions were stupid, he'd write out a detailed solution and pass it back. Back and forth like that, we sort of became library pen pals. The more time I spent around him, the more I realized he seemed to be struggling financially. He ate maybe one meal a day, never bought snacks, and all his notebooks and textbooks were worn out. He didn't even own a laptop. I liked him so much. How could I just watch him go hungry? I got bolder and started following him to the dining hall. I'd always order an extra dish, pretend it was an accident, and push it over to him. When he wasn't around, I'd sneak snacks into his backpack. After a full week of this, he finally caught on. While we were eating lunch, he broke his usual silence. "Hey, why are you doing all this?" I casually passed him the chicken leg from my bowl. "Huh?" I thought I was being pretty obvious. He still looked confused. "I don't get it. Back then, I had no idea you were supposed to be subtle when you pursued someone." And just like that, I scared him off. For the next few days, Ethan didn't show up at the library. I waited and waited, but after a whole week, there was still no sign of him. Finally, I gave up and went to a bar to drink my sorrows away. I never expected to run into him there. He was working part-time as a server. Probably fueled by liquid courage, I walked right up to him. "Ethan, why'd you stop coming to the library?" He seemed shocked to see me and instinctively took a step back. Seeing that gesture hurt a little. I got a part-time job. I have to work," Ethan said, his face hidden in the shadows. I sat down at the bar, nervously fiddling with my fingers. I'm not a timid person, but in that moment, I hesitated. "So what I said last time, have you thought about it?" After I said it, time seemed to freeze for 10 seconds. After a moment, he started calmly polishing a glass, his voice even. "I haven't. I'm not going to say yes." Felt like my heart had been squeezed again. My cheeks were flushed. Couldn't let it go. "Is it because you don't like guys? Or you don't like me?" Ethan finished with the glass and stepped out of the shadows. His expression was as placid as ever, completely devoid of emotion. "I don't like you." I made a pretty pathetic exit. My stomach was churning, as if it knew I was hurting and wanted me to throw up all the sadness. I stumbled out the door and collapsed under a big tree. When I came to my senses, I found myself surrounded by a few huge, beefy guys. "Well, look what we have here. Some rich kid? He's pretty cute."
No idea.
"Maybe one of the escorts from inside." "Hey, never had a taste of a man before. No one's around, right? A little touch won't hurt anything, will it?" With that, a greasy hand reached for me. I tried to struggle to my feet, but my whole body felt weak. Ugh. I knew I shouldn't have tried to act tough and drink that strong stuff. The guy pinned me down, his fingers stroking my chin, while his other hand crept toward the hem of my shirt. Just as he was about to lift it, a hand with well-defined knuckles shot out and yanked him away without hesitation. "Get lost." The voice wasn't loud, but it was powerful. But these guys were regulars at the club. They weren't about to back down. Without missing a beat, they threw a punch at Ethan. The scene instantly devolved into chaos. My drunken bravado kicked in, and I tried to join the fight. But before I could even raise a fist, someone grabbed me. Ethan had me by the collar, lifting me like a kitten and stuffing me into a car parked on the street, locking the doors behind me. I could hear the fight raging outside, but I couldn't get the door open. The chaos only ended when the bar owner came out. A long time later, Ethan finally remembered I was still in the car. Even with my vision swimming, I could see he was hurt. Almost instinctively, I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket, took his hand, and carefully started wrapping his wounds. Ethan didn't pull away, so I got bolder and blew gently on the cut a couple of times. I remember our butler teaching me to do that. In the end, Ethan had no choice but to take me home with him. As I clung to his back, I asked in a small voice, "Do you really not like me?" "I don't." "But you're still carrying me?" "I'm just doing the right thing." I found out later that Ethan got fired from the bar because of me. When I heard the news, I was torn between guilt and heartache. But the flicker of hope I thought had died out was suddenly rekindled. He must care about me at least a little bit, right? I couldn't just ignore what I'd done. I saw Ethan again at the hospital. He was there, head bowed, pleading with someone. "Grandma's surgery is still a little short. Can you please?" The man waved his hands frantically. "Ethan, it's not that your uncle won't help you, but your aunt keeps such a tight leash on the money. I just don't have any." Ethan looked up at him, his eyes filled with contempt. The man couldn't take the look and just threw a few crumpled bills at Ethan's face. "This is all I can do for you. Don't come looking for me again." As he walked away, he muttered under his breath, "Ugh, that old hag is such bad luck. And the kids know better." Ethan seemed used to it. He just quietly bent down to pick up the money. He looked much more worn down than before. My heart softened, and I walked over to him. When Ethan saw me, he couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. But I was too young then, too naive to understand what he was afraid of. All I knew was that he was in trouble, and I had to help him. So I said, "Ethan, I'll help you. Will you be with me?" Ethan just stood there, frozen. In that moment, the look on his face wasn't joy. It was only much later that I understood. It was a look of suppressed shame and humiliation. Grandma's surgery went smoothly. Ethan came back to school from the hospital. And we were together, I guess. He started saving a seat for me in the library. He agreed to eat with me, and he stopped pushing me away. But other than that, he was still so cold. If I didn't initiate, he could go a whole day without saying a word to me. I knew that, deep down, Ethan still didn't like me. I'd buy him the most expensive birthday gifts and take him to the best restaurants. He'd refuse at first, but he couldn't hold out against my constant pleading. But you can't force a connection that isn't there. One Friday evening, I went to his dorm to find him, but his bed was empty. Ethan had moved out. As I turned to leave, I heard his roommates mocking him. Wonder which sugar daddy picked him up. He's been living large lately. Probably got exposed and moved out because he was so ashamed. Ha ha ha. Good thing he's gone. He was dragging down our department's reputation. Exactly. Being poor is one thing, but being shameless is another. Felt like I'd been struck by lightning. I yanked out my phone. The headline spilling the tea on a university heartthrob, Ethan Brooke, being a kept man, was trending on the school's online forum. The thread had thousands of replies, most of them filled with disgusting speculation and insults. Ethan had been dealing with all of this gossip, and he'd never said a word to me. Guilt and fear washed over me, and I started searching for him everywhere. Ethan, where are you? I sent the text, but there was no reply for a long time. In a panic, I had someone track down his location. When I knocked on his door, soaked from the rain, his face was colder than I had ever seen it. The chill seemed to seep in from outside, and I shivered. I'm sorry. Are we breaking up? Our voices overlapped. I froze. My heart felt like it had been kicked into a freezing river. Cold and painful. The rain kept pouring outside the window. Before I could finish, Ethan suddenly pulled me into a hug. He held me against his warm chest and gently stroked my back. His voice was softer now. I was kidding. It's cold out here. Come inside. My frantic heart, which had just taken a dive, leisurely swam back into my chest. I pulled away a little and said quietly, Ethan, I'm sorry. He didn't say no, which I took as an acceptance. I promised him I won't treat you like that anymore. I'll help you clear up the rumors, and I won't bother you on campus again. I just hope you'll stick to our agreement. I deliberately ignored his joke that wasn't a joke at all. Ethan stared at me and said in a hoarse voice, Okay. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. The next day, all of those posts were taken down. I suppressed all the rumors about Ethan, but he stayed in his new place and didn't move back to the dorm. I figured I'd managed to smooth things over. So, I started showing up at his rental place all the time. His budget was tight, and the apartment was old. I wouldn't buy him expensive things anymore, but I could help him fix up the place so it was at least comfortable, warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Gradually, the apartment started filling up with a PlayStation, model race cars, all kinds of snacks, and Lego sets. It wasn't until later that I realized all of that stuff was what I liked. Ethan never said anything, but he wasn't mad either. One time, I was playing video games so late I accidentally fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I was in Ethan's arms. Over time, it was like he just accepted that we were living together. On my birthday, Ethan met my friends for the first time. He sat quietly beside me in the high-end restaurant. I was so happy to introduce him to my buddies, and they all accepted that he was my boyfriend. Honestly, in our circle, it wasn't weird for someone to have a guy as a partner. But most of them were just playing around. They'd rarely bring someone to a formal event. But Ethan was different. I wanted him to know that he was important to me. Since it was my birthday, a lot of people came over to toast me. I could handle it at first, but I was starting to fade. Then, someone grabbed my wrist and took the glass from my hand. Ethan's eyes were dark, his voice low. I'll drink for him. The next second, the table erupted in knowing chuckles and teasing. They seemed even more excited than I was. Someone even yelled for us to kiss in front of everyone. Ethan's cheeks were flushed from the alcohol, and his lips were still wet. I braced myself on my chair and leaned in carefully. Ethan suddenly looked down, his eyes fixed on me with a complicated expression. I gathered my courage and moved closer. Just as our lips were about to touch, someone called my name. Martin. Ethan's eyes cleared, and he quickly turned his head away. Annoyed, I spun around, but my jaw dropped when I saw who it was. Leo! Leo was leaning casually against the doorframe, waiting for me to run over and jump on him like I always did. I shot up from my seat to run to him, but I stopped myself just before I threw my arms around him. I instinctively glanced back at Ethan, but he wasn't looking at me. Leo looked a little surprised, then ruffled my curly hair. Well, look at you, all grown up. You don't even invite me to your own birthday party anymore. Huh? I pulled his hand away and explained with a grin. I didn't know you were back in the country. If you'd told me earlier, I would have been the first one at the airport to pick you up. Leo just smiled and shook his head, naturally taking a seat beside me. Everyone at the table knew Leo, and they all started chatting with him. Leo and I grew up together. He was more of a dad to me than my own father. He was practically family. Leo, this is my boyfriend. Hearing this, Leo looked over at Ethan with interest. Nice to meet you. Ethan gave a slight nod. You too. After that, they didn't interact much. As the party wound down, a waiter brought out a cake, along with a gift from the restaurant. It was the latest Cartier men's watch. Ethan stared at the watch, his face slowly turning pale. After the waiter left, Leo gave me his gift. It was my favorite limited edition model race car, the kind you could barely find in the country. I was excitedly fiddling with the model, completely missing that Ethan had quietly slipped away. Leo glanced in his direction and followed him out. Just as Ethan got to the restroom, Leo walked in. They looked at each other in the mirror, a silent challenge passing between them. You're Ethan? Ethan nodded. Leo turned on the faucet, the running water muffling their conversation. You're Martin's boyfriend because he helped you, and yet you didn't even get him a birthday present. Don't you feel ashamed? Ethan's hand tightened around the small box in his pocket. He pressed his lips together and said nothing. Leo had been in the business world for years. He could see Ethan's insecurity right away. Do you know anything about Martin's family? Do you know what he likes? What he dislikes? Ethan's eyes grew red, his voice tinged with defiance. He's the one who came after me first. Leo couldn't help but laugh. He is pretty into you. But, Martin has liked a lot of things. He's been into racing, horseback riding, anything that gives him a thrill. He never cared about spending tons of money and time on them. But his biggest flaw is that he gets bored fast. Racing was his favorite, and even that only lasted a year. How long do you think his interest in you is going to last? Ethan's face grew paler and paler. Leo calmly watched the shifting emotions on Ethan's face. Finally, he turned off the water and dried his hands. Martin can afford to play this game. Can you? If it's not yours, you'd be wise not to get attached. After Leo left, Ethan stood alone in the restroom for a long time. He took the box out of his pocket. Inside was a watch identical to the one from the restaurant. The only difference was the small engraving of Martin's initials on the back. He traced the letters carefully, afraid the calluses on his fingers might scratch the face. In that moment, all his hard work over the past few weeks felt like a joke. All those sleepless nights working part-time jobs, and he'd only just managed to afford something Martin got for free. By the time Ethan came out, most of the guests were gone. He silently helped me gather my things. As we were leaving the restaurant, I couldn't help but ask, Ethan, no present? Ethan looked down, his voice cold. No. In that instant, I knew he wasn't joking. It would be a lie to say I wasn't disappointed. I quietly let go of his hand. Just then, the sky opened up, and it started pouring. The ride-sharing app couldn't find a single driver. For a long time, Ethan didn't take my hand again. As the temperature dropped, I couldn't help but sneeze. Ethan took off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. I put my hand on his and said softly, no present, but can I have a wish? They say you get 3 wishes on your birthday. I still have one left. Ethan went along with it. What's your wish? I looked up, my eyes shining with a single hope. Can I kiss you? Ethan's face turned bright red. If you don't say anything, I'll take that as a yes. Ethan still didn't speak. So, fueled by alcohol, I leaned in and kissed him. It was quick, just a light touch. I studied his expression. He didn't seem to hate it. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. Be greedier, he said, his voice raspy. I didn't quite hear him. What? The next second, Ethan cupped the back of my head and kissed me again. This time, it wasn't just a peck. As our lips tangled together, I heard him murmur, I'm begging you, be a little greedier. I wrapped my arms around his waist, completely content. The spring rain fell gently around us. Gradually, Ethan's kisses moved to my ear, and I heard him whisper, Martin, happy birthday. After my birthday, Ethan got even busier. Sometimes he wouldn't get back to the apartment until the early hours of the morning. Once Ethan's grandma started feeling better, I began visiting her often. She was a kind old woman who would teach us how to make dumplings during the new year and cook all sorts of delicious food for me. She always reminded me of my own grandmother, who had passed away when I was young. It had been a long time since I'd felt that kind of warmth. Of course, she didn't know about Ethan and me. After all, the older generation didn't seem to be very accepting of things like that. Ethan's career started to take off, and our time in college was coming to an end. I naively thought that we were really in love, until the day a sweet-looking young woman showed up in the hospital room. Ethan's grandma held her hand warmly, listening to her chat away. After I came in, Grandma called me over. Martin, come here. This is Ethan's childhood neighbor, Helen. Helen smiled brightly. You must be Martin. Grandma, Ethan talks about you all the time. I nodded and said warmly, Nice to meet you. Helen quickly turned back to continue her conversation with Grandma. 10 minutes later, Ethan arrived. The moment Helen saw him, she excitedly ran over and clung to him. She held onto his arm. Ethan, it's been forever. Ethan tried to shift away, but Helen wouldn't let go. He finally had to warn her in a low voice. Helen. Helen reluctantly let go, but not without pouting. Grandma. See? Ethan is still so grumpy. Ethan put his things down and sat on the side, peeling an apple. Helen naturally sat down next to him. I sat off to the side, listening to them talk about a past I knew nothing about. For the first time, I felt completely out of place. Ethan kept his head down, only occasionally chiming in, until Helen brought up their childhood. Grandma, do you remember that time Ethan made me cry when we were little? To make it up to me, he said he'd marry me when we grew up. Grandma chimed in, I remember. He was such a little troublemaker. I gave him a good scolding for that. I instinctively looked at Ethan. He paused what he was doing and explained coolly, it was just a childhood joke. It doesn't mean anything. But that just shifted the conversation onto him. Grandma looked at him seriously and asked, Ethan, do you have a girlfriend now? Ethan looked up at me, seemingly about to speak. Afraid his grandma would notice something between us, I quickly turned away. Ethan lowered his eyes. No. Grandma sighed. Ethan, don't let this old woman hold you back. Helen jumped in at the right moment to comfort her. Don't worry, Grandma. I'll be here to keep Ethan company. They continued to reminisce, and I quietly slipped out of the room. That night, Ethan came home very late. I was still awake when he held me. Ethan probably guessed what I was thinking, but he was too exhausted to explain. Growing up, Helen's family had been very kind to Ethan and his grandmother. But after her father passed away unexpectedly, her mother remarried and moved them away, so they lost touch. Now, Helen had gotten into a university, and the two families were close again. And besides, Ethan's grandma really liked Helen. I didn't have class on Friday, so I decided to go to the hospital to see her. Just as I got in my car, I ran into Helen. She tapped on my window. Martin, can I get a ride to the hospital? I couldn't exactly say no to her, so I nodded. The second Helen got in the car, her whole demeanor changed. Martin, I know about you and Ethan. I slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the side of the road. Helen continued the campus forum. I saw it all. That person was you. So what do you want? She turned to face me, her expression self-righteous. I want you to let Ethan go. He doesn't like you. I know you used his grandma's illness to force him to be with you. He's not even into men. Forcing yourself on someone like that is disgusting. The string of accusations left my head spinning. Helen got more and more agitated. Her eyes filled with contempt. You probably don't even know. Do you? Ethan is about to land a huge project. If it goes through, he'll get a massive investment and be able to pay you back in no time. Why else do you think he's been working himself to death all these years? It's to get away from you. If you have any shame, you'll be the one to walk away. Otherwise, if his grandma finds out about you too, it won't be good if she has another health scare. After all, not everyone is a pervert like you. With that, Helen slammed the car door and got out. My hands gripped the steering wheel, and I just sat there, unable to move for a long time. So, is that what Ethan thought too? I didn't go to the hospital that day. I went back to the bar where I first met Ethan and happened to run into Leo. Leo swapped my drink for something with less alcohol. Something on your mind? I clutched my glass and asked, Leo, do you think Ethan ever liked me? Trouble in paradise? I shook my head. I don't know. All right, let's break it down. I'll ask, you answer. Has Ethan ever told you he likes you? My mind flashed back to our first real conversation in the bar, when he said, I don't like you. I shook my head. No. Has he told his family or friends about your relationship? His grandma had no idea. I shook my head again. No. Has Ethan ever planned a future with you? No. He didn't need to ask any more questions. The answer was obvious. When I got home, Ethan was surprisingly there. As I walked past, I heard him ask, You went to see Leo? I nodded nonchalantly. Yeah, I needed to talk to him about something. Ethan's face darkened, but he didn't press further. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. Son, have you thought any more about going abroad? I held my phone, hesitating for a moment before texting back. Okay. Then I started packing. I was so distracted that I forgot my keys on my way downstairs. I had no choice but to go to campus to find Ethan. I finally found him in a classroom. Just as I was about to go in, I saw Helen. The next second, I heard Ethan say, Who would ever be into a guy? It's disgusting. A moment later, I heard Helen's bright, tinkling laughter. I turned and walked away without going in. He hadn't been home in days anyway. I didn't want any of my stuff from the apartment. My family had asked Leo to help me with everything, and since he had business overseas, he decided to leave with me. We didn't see each other again before I left. On the way to the airport, I saw Helen's post on social media. Thanks, Ethan, for taking time out of your busy schedule to see a movie with me. The picture was of her with her arm linked through someone else's. It was strange, but seeing it, I felt calm. I quickly blocked her on my messenger and then called Ethan. Ethan, let's break up. Came out of nowhere, and he seemed stunned. But after a long pause, he still said, Okay. The second before I hung up, I heard the boarding call announcement from the airport. He had no idea I was leaving the country. But right after my plane landed, I got a notification from my bank.
$52,000.
He'd paid me back every single cent. It seemed he really couldn't wait to be rid of me. All those ridiculous years were finally over. Most of the time, he was the cold and distant one. But now our roles were reversed. I reminded him coolly, Have you forgotten? You agreed to the breakup. Ethan refused to let go. I didn't know you were going to leave. If he had known that leaving meant 5 years, he never would have agreed. He always thought they had more time, enough time for him to grow, to become stronger, to finally be able to stand with me openly. But life doesn't work that way. No one is obligated to wait for you. So what do you want? He looked at me with longing. For you to come back to me. He was so earnest it almost felt fake. The standoff had gone on too long, and Leo finally had enough. He got out of the car, pulled Ethan off me, and pushed me back inside. We're all adults here. We should know when to let things go. With that, he got back in the car and sped off, leaving Ethan standing alone on the street. In the car, I couldn't snap out of it. Not until Leo stopped at a red light. Still thinking about him, I turned my head away, annoyed. No. Leo saw right through me. Sure you're not. You've got his Wikipedia page open on your phone. I looked down and he was right. Quickly locked my phone. Ethan's company had grown incredibly fast over the years, becoming a leader in the industry in just a few years. It was not just nationwide but had operations abroad. Even the partner I was negotiating with right after coming back had ties to him. It just showed how vast his reach was. The car started moving again, and Leo got serious. Do you regret breaking up? I clutched my phone tighter. No. Thinking about getting back together? Never. Affection that shows up 5 years late is worthless. It's not a loss to throw it away. I didn't answer, just stared silently at the picture on my phone. I had to admit, Ethan and Helen really did look good together. To avoid any contact with Ethan, I had Leo take over as the point person for the deal. He was happy to do it. Ethan waited at the partner's office for 3 days, but when I never showed up, he sent someone else in his place. Then he came to find me himself. Come in. I looked up and saw a travel-worn Ethan standing in my doorway. What are you doing here? There are still some things to discuss about the project. You can talk to Leo. Martin. He cut me off, his hands clenching at his sides. He said in a low voice, please don't be like this. I thought I made myself perfectly clear that night. I gathered my things, trying to make a quick escape, but as I passed him, he blocked my way. Martin, I love you. He said it with such sincerity, such earnestness. I was forced to stop. The small office was thick with an awkward, tense silence. I used to dream of hearing him say he loved me, but now I didn't need it anymore. I sighed. I forced you into that relationship. You must have hated me, right? After all, you said you'd never like me. In my 2nd year abroad, my dad's company suddenly faced a crisis. I had to go around begging for help, and an investor finally offered a hand. I thought he was just being kind, but it turned out he was just into guys. He said he could help me on the condition that I spend 1 night with him. The way his lecherous eyes roamed over me made my skin crawl. It was then that I finally understood. Is this how Ethan felt when he was faced with my demands? I pulled his hand away. You're just not used to me not following you around anymore. But Ethan, that's not love. No, it's not a habit, he quickly denied. A shadow of sorrow crossed his face. It wasn't that I didn't like you, it was that I didn't dare to. You had the resources to walk away anytime you wanted. But I didn't. I was trying so hard to be worthy of you. But when I finally looked back, you were already gone. His voice broke, raw and vulnerable as he laid his heart bare. Martin, can you just give me one more chance? His desperate courage reminded me of myself all those years ago. But not everything can go back to the way it was. Ethan, it's too late. I'm with someone else now. I don't need you. Go home. Your fiancé is waiting for you. Just as I finished speaking, Leo appeared at the door. Ethan left. I watched his lonely figure walk away, a sour feeling rising in my chest. Leo stood beside me. Feeling sorry for him? I pushed down the sadness and forced myself to say no. Leo looked down. I checked. That Helen girl isn't his fiancée. She's just vain and paid for a bunch of bots online to spread rumors. I have no idea why Ethan kept her at his company all these years. Though, I lowered my eyes. I know, but there's still no chance for us. What Helen said back then did hurt me for a while, but once I calmed down, I realized it was all bullshit. The person who really made me let go was Ethan's grandma. One day, after the nurse had just changed her medication, she wasn't resting. I was sitting beside her when she suddenly looked at me, her expression complicated. A bad feeling washed over me. The next second, she spoke. Martin, you two should just let it go. So she knew all along. Like a child caught doing something wrong. I couldn't meet her eyes. She continued, Ethan's first half of his life was already so hard because of me. I don't want the rest of his life to be filled with gossip and judgment. Please, consider this an old woman's request. Okay. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her weathered face was etched with a quiet plea. How could I say no to that? Couldn't. She knew I was a soft touch. In that moment, I knew our relationship had reached its end. I was too young back then, too naive. I didn't yet know that things don't always go my way. Not with Ethan and not with growing up. When my family's company hit a crisis and my dad fell ill from the stress, I had to step up and face everything alone. In that moment, I knew I couldn't be that carefree kid anymore. If Leo hadn't stepped in to help, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I once asked him why he helped me so much. He said my dad was a good man, and he was just returning a favor. He was worried I'd get taken advantage of and wanted to help in any way he could. I knew he had his own struggles, too, so we made a deal to be each other's cover. He taught me about business, and I fend off his unwanted admirers. I actually knew Leo wasn't interested in me, because I once accidentally discovered we weren't a match. That day in the bar, right after he'd given me a pep talk, I saw him getting pushed into a corner and kissed by some guy. The guy had blue hair, a bad boy vibe, and looked about my age. The weird thing was, Leo didn't fight back. He just let the guy's hand slide under his shirt, tracing lines on his lean waist. When I realized they were about to do something much more intimate, I bolted. In my haste, I bumped into a wall. "Mr. Cheen, what a shame." He said something else, but I didn't dare stick around to hear it. Of course, Leo has no idea I saw any of this. After all, he probably thinks that, in my eyes, he's still a total alpha. He started traveling abroad a lot after that, probably to avoid that particular admirer. After that, our project moved forward smoothly. Once Leo took over as the contact person, I didn't see Ethan again. But after about a week, Leo passed the job off to his assistant, Jake, and neither of us went back to Ethan's company. Luckily, there weren't many face-to-face meetings required, and the collaboration was soon wrapping up. At the project launch event, Ethan and I met again. By this point, I could face him calmly. I had learned not to let personal feelings interfere with work. The moment I saw who Ethan's new point person was, I knew why Leo had bailed today. The blue-haired kid from back then now had black hair and was dressed in a suit. He looked a lot more mature. No wonder Leo handed the job off to Jake after just a few days. Ethan was all business when he worked. We were like a pair of well-oiled partners. Until it was my turn to speak, and a reporter suddenly veered into gossip about my college days. "Mr. Johnston, we hear you had a secret relationship back in school. Can you confirm if that person was Mr. Brooke? Posts online also claim that you were the one who forced him to come out. Is that true? Is your current partnership related to your past private affairs?" The media loves to dig for dirt. In an instant, the entire narrative went off the rails. This was supposed to be a completely normal business collaboration. And then, I saw Helen hiding in a corner. The media pressed on relentlessly, and the press conference descended into chaos. I don't know when he got there, but suddenly Ethan was standing in front of me. His voice was warm and magnetic. We were in love, but there was no coercion, no bullying, and no one was being kept. We were equals in love. We were then, and we will be in the future. A business titan publicly coming out of the closet. The venue erupted. More reporters swarmed in, surrounding us until we couldn't move. Ethan grabbed my hand and started pulling me through the dense crowd, running toward the exit. But the scene was too chaotic. I tripped over someone and fell to the ground. The next second, I heard a strange noise from above. The chandelier over our heads was falling. I braced for impact, but the pain never came. Instead, I felt a heavy weight on top of me. Ethan had thrown himself over me. The chandelier crashed into his head. Blood pooled on the floor. Ethan woke up in the hospital 2 days later. His fingers twitched, and the moment he regained consciousness, he grabbed for me. "Martin, are you here?" I took his hand. "I'm here." He looked at me with concern, and I reassured him, "I'm okay." Leo and Ethan's assistant took care of the company, and public opinion quickly turned in our favor. Helen was taken in by the police. At the mention of her name, Ethan's brow furrowed in disgust. I had always thought that, on some level, Ethan cared for her. So I brought up the past, but when I got to the part about him hating men, he looked completely baffled. When did I ever say that? I cleared my throat and reminded him. "Back then, you said it in front of Helen." His frown deepened as he denied it vehemently. "I absolutely never said that. I told him it was in a classroom at school." After thinking hard for an hour, Ethan finally remembered. Helen had told him their drama club was rehearsing a play and asked for his help running lines. When they got to that part of the script, he thought it was weird, so he stopped helping her. He never imagined she'd been plotting something even back then. As for why he kept Helen at his company all those years, it was partly to repay her parents for their kindness when he was growing up, and partly because Helen had told him she had news about me. She'd somehow gotten her hands on photos of me and tricked Ethan into believing we were still in contact. He wanted to believe it so badly that he fell for it. It wasn't until 5 years later that we finally met again. He held me tight. "Martin, don't leave again. Okay?" I didn't push him away, but I didn't give him an answer either. I often think if only our beginning hadn't been so messy, then we could have loved each other as equals, from the past into the future. After Ethan was discharged from the hospital, he still needed time to recover. He wanted to stay at my place. I was about to refuse, but then I remembered he'd gotten hurt because of me, and my resolve softened. He was actually well behaved at first, until the third day when I discovered his limp was a complete act. He walked into the living room without a problem, and then he stumbled upon my secret. Ethan held up the small box. "Martin, what's this?" I scrambled to snatch it from his hand. Ethan stood where he was and suddenly started to cry. His tears hit the floor with a soft patter, the loudest sound in the room. I clutched the box and didn't answer him. That night at my birthday dinner, a waiter had found this little box in the trash. The gift inside was engraved with my name. They thought I'd dropped it by mistake and called me to come get it. So he had gotten me a gift that night. He just didn't think it was good enough. Back then, he couldn't give me any promises. Ethan stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Martin, I can buy you so many model cars now, and any game you want. I should be able to be with you now. I've missed you so much. So, please, come back to me. Okay?" His sadness was so profound that it made me sad, too. An image of his grandmother's tear-filled eyes flashed in my mind. I don't know. Your grandma wouldn't want us to be together. It would make her sad." At the mention of his grandma, Ethan fell silent. "She's gone. She passed away after you left. She didn't wait for me and you didn't wait for me. I don't have any family left." I stood frozen for a moment, then slowly walked toward him. He hugged me, burying his face in my neck. His tears soaked the collar of my shirt. I heard him say, "She wouldn't be happy to see me like this. You have so much, and I was always so scared that I was just a game to you, something you'd eventually throw away. I tried to make myself so important, so substantial, that you couldn't just leave me behind. But I was so stupid. I couldn't do anything right. I always wished you would be greedier, that you'd want more than just a kiss, that you'd want my whole life. Come back. Okay?" I let my defenses fall. "Okay," I said.